and welcome to another episode of Immigration and Mobility Decoded. I am your host, Eric Prado, joined by my co host, Cecily Nelson. And today we're welcoming Antonio Lamb, the UK Director of Immigration at Envoy Global, to discuss some quite important updates happening out in the UK. But before we get there, as always, Cecily and Antonio, just want to catch up really quick, see how you're both doing.
All is well. Yes, we're into October now, so fall has graced us with its presence.
Yes. Antonio, how are you doing?
Not too bad, not too bad. We're having amazing weather for a change in London. In fact, I think we're hitting the 20s again in October, late October. So I'm
Okay.
pretty happy, I have to say.
Nice. Antonio, how are things out there in the UK? I forget. Are you a Premier League guy?
No, unfortunately not. I know you always ask me this, and football is a thing that I really do need to watch or start watching. Otherwise, you can ask me again. I'll still say no. You're trying to convince me. No, not yet.
I've just been watching a little bit more of it. I just went to a big fan fest out here in Chicago last month. I found that to be quite fun. So I'm getting deeper into Premier League.
Ah, right. Well, that's a cue for me then.
Yeah. Cecily, how has your fall been? You have some big life news, I think, right?
Yes, I just got married about a month ago. So I'm back in the swing of things from the post-wedding and the honeymoon. So I'm now I think, in that blues that they say that it's all kind of over, all of that planning, and all came to a head in September, and we lucked out and just had the most beautiful weather. And then we went to Italy for 2 weeks following the wedding. So we got to enjoy the honeymoon right away, which I will say I recommend to anyone to go right away if you can, because it made it even more special to get to celebrate and continue that celebration after the wedding.
Lovely. Well, welcome back. And yes, those post-wedding blues definitely hit really hard and are for real. So anything we could do to help. Well, as much as I would love to just continue to chat and catch up, Antonio, as you are well aware, there are quite a few important updates out of the UK regarding immigration and things of that sort. So we thought it would be beneficial for the three of us just to chat with you, so you can explain in more detail, what these changes are, the importance, and maybe some next steps that not only employees but also employers can take. And so I think the way we're going to format this is kind of like in FAQ style. So Cecily and I have come up with a list of questions for you, and we'll just kind of go through those. And then if anyone is listening has any additional questions, definitely feel free to comment below or reach out to us directly so we can address those. All right. So Antonio, you ready?
Happy to. Hope I can answer all the questions.
All right. So what is this news about, UKVI, the eVisa, replacing of physical visas? I've seen quite a bit of chatter about it, not only on our website, but also LinkedIn.
No, absolutely. There's a huge transformation project that's been ongoing. Well, mind you, though, this transformation project has been ongoing for some time, and it's now dawning on people that 31st of December seems to be the relevant date of it. But essentially, it's part of a wider digital transformation system that the Home Office has been adopting for some time, as I've said. It's really, for this round anyway, that we are going to be talking about, it's replacing physical documents, so and in particular biometric residence permits, with e-records instead. And so the UK is trying to drive away, I guess, from physical documents, at least in part for now, into a much more digital format, so it's easier to track, and easier to trace, easier to, even for applicants to view their visas.
And so this has been in the works even before the new UK government came into power?
Yes. It's been there for some time. I can't recall the exact date when the sort of green paper came out to say, hey, we want a digital transformation. I think it's probably almost a decade ago. Then this is all sort of part and parcel of pushing this through. I think, the RPA has been around for quite some time already, but the slow transformation, or the evolution, we'll call it, really sort of kicked off during, I guess, Brexit, right? When, Europeans, always Brexit, Europeans,
always Brexit.
always Brexit. I think I was talking about, football, actually, not in great depths, but I think we blame Brexit somehow. I don't know how it got there, but I digress. But really, European citizens having to apply for European settlement scheme status at the time already started using this sort of process, and it sort of worked. And so this is sort of moving now, the slow moving ground towards some of the non-visa national applying from within the UK having that e-visa as well. And now, of course, it's the full blown of everyone else who holds a biometric residence card can now apply and have this sort of e-record in readiness for the new year.
And so I know this is probably going to seem like a very broad, maybe simple question. So I'll just ask, take it where you want. Why is this relevant?
No, it is hugely relevant, and yes, it has to be a very broad question because most employers we speak to, even employees we speak to of our clients, basically say, "Oh, I'm no longer a sponsored worker, for example. I'm not a skilled worker. I'm not a transferee. I have a BRP card, but do I need to do anything?" The answer is, well, actually, yes, because the digital transformation is not just exclusive to those who have a work visa, for example. It's everyone who holds a biometric residence permit, including those who have indefinite leave to remain. So a lot of the individuals who have settled status for many years, they didn't even think about needing an e-visa. So it is important and it is relevant in the sense that they will want to have that e-record because, from the 31st of December, if they hold a BRP card, it's no longer going to be valid.
So in terms of timing and when this change will take place, the 31st of December of this year?
Yeah, so all BRP cards, obviously, even if the visa basically expires on the 31st of December, please renew the actual visa. The e-records is an entirely separate kettle of fish. It is transforming from the card to an e-visa or e-record rather than your actual visa being renewed. So if you need to renew your visa, make sure you do renew your visa before or after, whichever may be the case. But yes, absolutely right. So all BRP cards effectively, at the latest anyway, expires on the 31st of December 2024, and the digital record system effectively kicks into sort of full fruition, so to speak, on the 1st of January 2025. Now, we already have the e-visas for most people who apply from within the country, or especially non-visa nationals or Europeans having a work permit, for example, here in the UK, they would probably already have an e-visa. But yeah, the full sort of kick-off, so to speak, when it all sort of come into play would be the 1st of January 2025.
I can't help but maybe slightly crack a joke regarding the date. Do you feel pretty good it's going to be the 31st of December if we think back to Brexit and the deadline kept getting pushed back?
Well, yeah, the joke really is, and should I really be saying this, it's the European version of this biometric ETS, sort of our ETA. It's been pushed back for so many years, right? I'm sure there will be another podcast talking just about that. But hopefully on this round, there has been a lot of preparation work involved. We always say as immigration practitioner that there can be more from the Home Office side, but I know that they've done quite a lot in preparing for this, and many years coming as well. So hopefully the 1st of January will come into play. In fact, we have a lot of news about 31st, well, not news actually, it's a fact, that from the 31st of October 2024, we're no longer going to have any BRP cards anyway. The new ones are not going to be issued. So it's sort of a dying document, so to speak. So the 1st of January has to be the 1st of January.
I have one final question, and then I'll hand it off to Cecily. You've been mentioning, eVisa, BRP. And so to kind of cap off this round of questions, Antonio, can you explain the difference between the BRP versus the eVisa versus an actual visa?
Yeah, so you can have many, many documents. I mean, whoever have fun reading the employer right to work check guidance would see a variation of different stickers, papers, cards, and everything else in between that we all call collectively as a visa, effectively. So BRP cards are visas. Visa stickers or vignettes are also visas, so to speak. Used to be the old sticker on a piece of paper, the immigration status document, also visas, so to speak. So they're all sort of in one. And we sort of live in an age where there are several types of documents that coexist rather together that we can use. But I guess let's go back a bit to history, is pre sort of 2008, before the European regulations came in and BRP cards are sort of required, so to speak, or introduced, so to speak. We all had sort of paper documents or card documents or stickers on within our passports. So that is something that we base it off, right? And since the introduction of BRP, some of the older versions of the visa, so for example, some of the indefinite leave to remain stickers used to be a green little sticker on the passport, and you're supposed to have that replaced on the new sticker with a new passport, that type of stuff. That coexisted with our so-called BRP cards, which, because of the wide implementation of the BRP cards, we call the BRP cards the visa, because of course the expiry date of the BRP card at the time reflected the expiry date of the actual visa itself. Now, of course, coming to 2015, then it became, everyone needs a BRP card. And now come, of course, 2025, everybody needs an eVisa. And no doubt there will be some legacy expired BRP cards that are still going to be in circulation or in holding anyway. But BRP cards, and I mean, at the moment, I guess eVisas are, the Home Office is very sort of robust in saying that it's a record of your visa status rather than actually calling, I know it's called an eVisa, but really is a record of holding what your records say within the Home Office. So I think that's probably a much more accurate term now, because your BRP card is not really your visa per se, because the expiry date in itself is 31st of December at the latest anyway. It doesn't really reflect your true visa if it is indeed later than that date. But yeah, it's all one and the same thing, I would probably say. It's just a different variation of documents that have been used over the years and transformed. And I guess the idea is now is to uniform the approach of how, or rather to make the approach a bit more uniform in that sense, to make it a bit consistent in terms of how visas are read. But again, as I say, there will still be the legacy stickers and new stickers being issued, because the stickers are not going to be changed into eVisas until sometime in 2025, no date confirmed. So we'll continue to have these weird coexistence of many types of documents in the UK.
Great. I think it's very fascinating from our perspective just to kind of see the turn and kind of push to digitizing immigration. I think it's something that we've kind of heard in the background for a long time, as you were mentioning, something 10 or so years ago that they've kind of mentioned that there could be a process of allowing digital or digitization to be at the forefront of immigration. I think that we'll probably see that with other countries as well, if they haven't already been pushing towards that. But kind of staying on this UK topic, I think it would be beneficial for you to kind of share at a high level what that registration process looks like and who needs to register.
Yeah. I mean, I have to say, I'm pleasant. Eric would know, and you would know, I always talk about how complex things are. But in this instance, I have to praise the Home Office. Their system has been great. I've worked with a lot of clients, sitting down with them and actually going through some of them, because they had difficulty sort of working through that initial sort of stages. But when you work those through, it's actually really simple. I mean, everyone, of course, as I say, who holds a BRP card can register now for, rather sign up to a UKVI account, and then subsequently link the existing visa onto an e-record, which then we call the e-visa. But it's a really simple process. Let's call it a two-phase process. But effectively, you go on the browser, as if you're shopping, sign up to a UKVI account. Few questions, 5 or 6 questions about your personal details, date of birth, do you have a BRP card, that type of stuff, things that you can just sort of answer straight away, and ask your personal details, like your telephone number and your email that you can access your account and so on and so forth. That will take around a couple of minutes, really, after verification processes. And then off you go. You have an you have a UKVI account. And once you sign up to a UKVI account, there's a big, huge button basically saying, do you want to link your visa, your e-record or your e-visa? And you click onto it, and that's the fun part. I always say that's the fun part, because everybody fumbles around with it, including myself. You download a nice little app on your mobile phone. It works. It works when it works very, very well. It doesn't work, and you no longer want your phone anymore. But when it works, it's amazing. And the process is basically just linking the app onto the online page that you're on through QR or type in a code, and off you go to identify yourself effectively. And it will take the form of taking a photograph, scanning your biometric card or your passport, entering your application number, and of course, scanning your face to make sure that you are who you are, so verifying your identity. Once that is done, and again, a few short questions, you click submit, and off you go. And the Home Office will do its thing effectively. You don't even have to think about it. You can log off in a nutshell, and they will send you an email and say, hey, you've got an eVisa. Just go and check it out, and you can check your visa on the Home Office website. So it literally, I'd say it takes around 10 minutes to sort out the process. It's pretty quick and fun. Most people try not to laugh when they do it because they're trying to take a picture and go, "Should I look pretty?" Doesn't really matter, by the way. It's identification. Mm-hmm. Nobody would ever see it again.
Is the Home Office sharing when they will be getting back to these individuals with kind of the approval of this eVisa, or they're kind of leaving that in more of a gray area?
No, so it's pretty instantaneous, I would say. So we have situations where, or instances where it's done within minutes, literally 10 minutes or even few minutes from me speaking with the applicant. But sometimes they take a bit slightly longer, but usually you will hear back within a week at the latest, I would probably say. So it's not something that it's overly delayed or overly complex, so to speak. But of course, as more people go into the system and try to sort this out, and there may be a small delay, but so far we have not seen anybody complain about, I haven't had my eVisa for weeks. I mean, usually within 3 days they have the email to confirm, go check out your visa.
That's great. Seems like it's been a timely process so far, so I'm sure all of the individuals who are going through the registration process appreciate that. If not registered, what are the ramifications for an individual? They get to January 1st and they have not gone through this registration. What are those ramifications?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, nobody will go to jail if you don't do it. That's a good sign, right? We're always happy with that. But in all seriousness, I mean, it's more, again, it's not the actual visa. We have to remember that. So it's a record. If people don't do it, I guess there are some inconveniences more than anything. For example, we use our BRP cards to travel or to prove that you have some form of status. Airliners, of course, whilst they are able to, and the Home Office have already said, even if you haven't got the eVisa, you can still travel, so to speak, but it will delay things. And again, I think that's probably the most honest thing to say, is it will definitely hugely delay your travel, simply because they will have to confirm your status through the old means, I guess, and you have an expired card, of course, so they have to confirm somehow with the telephone line or whatever may be the case that you actually have that status. But the idea of eVisa is that they're able to check a code on their airliner system and then say, yep, you have the status, and then let you through. So it's supposed to be quite a seamless process. Without that seamless process, there will be definitely delays when you have no other sort of real identification process. Of course, right to rent checks could be an issue. So we have to prove that we have immigration status to rent a place. So if you go into a new place to rent and they need to go through that sort of process, and you have an expired BRP card, one would assume that you cannot generate a code for them to check. And so that could, again, be a delay in getting your rental property, for example. So, but a lot of it is really about delaying in travel. That's basically the concern, and the nervousness around what if the airline is a bit more robust and they basically say, well, actually, I'd rather you not coming on board than on board because I don't want our carrier's liability just in case. Then, I would urge everyone really to get that sorted, because it's so quick and so simple, rather than having that nervousness when you're traveling, from the Bahamas back to the UK, thinking you have a great holiday and then you go, I'm stuck in the airport for 6 hours.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it seems like from what you're saying, since it is a quick kind of seamless process, encourage people to do it on the earlier end. As they are kind of looking into this process, are there any resources that you would recommend individuals turn to, such as, a home office resource or anything that you've seen that's beneficial to kind of give individuals more knowledge surrounding?
Absolutely. I'm going to do a plug-in. We've done a whole briefing. I think it's a Q3 briefing that we have in September, which provide a very comprehensive FAQ and also the resources that they can point to, the home office resources that they can point to how to set up, what do they need to do, how they should do it. So that FAQ is fairly comprehensive, and I know from feedback from our client that they found it extremely useful, which they have sort of forwarded to the employees. But also the home office has a lot of resources out there. I think the last I've heard, they've put in about £4 million worth of resources to help vulnerable applicants in case they have issues with accessing internet or accessing the UKVI website or whatever may be the case. There are resources out there that can help. The Home Office has also published a very comprehensive FAQ themselves, also with videos and things, which is also on our FAQ, which basically show them sort of almost step by step as to how they can or individuals can actually access those. There's also a separate portal for employers to how to communicate that to the to the employees as well. So they really want to make it a success, and so I'm sure we can put the links at the bottom as well of our briefing, and then there'll be a lot of links out there that could or the links that we provide could be a good guide, I think, to help with this process.
And so, just going back real quick to something that you mentioned a few minutes ago about since this is a government app, and when it works, and when it doesn't, it doesn't. Just kind of reminds me that when it does work, it really, there are those instances where we're just like, wow, this is like so seamless, and it's like, why can't it always work, or things of that sort. Like I just came back from Mexico. I was in Mexico this prior weekend for a wedding, and obviously coming back, you have to go through customs and whatnot. And they're over here in the U.S. I don't have global entry, Cecily. I don't know if you have global entry, but the I guess next best thing is this app called Mobile Passport Control, where you answer the questions of like, were you near livestock? Are you carrying like more than $10,000 or things of that sort? And then you upload a picture. You're on the airplane, so you don't, you're just like tired anyway. So it's just this like picture of you sitting in your plane. And then at O'Hare, there's just a giant line of people. But then you show someone, you're like, hey, I have the thing. And then you're like, okay, you can just skip everyone and just like basically hop to the front. And you're like, oh, wow, this is great. So it's just one instance of like when a government app or feat program works, you appreciate it.
Absolutely, I agree. When the what we call the IDV or the UKVI ID checking app came out, it was new to us. I mean, obviously, it was back a few years ago now, and people are like, "Well, we don't need to go to a visa center to book an appointment, pay for an appointment, and do our biometrics." I'm like, "No, you don't. You just need to scan your BRP card or your passport, and we can identify you." And 10 minutes later, it's all done when it works. Everybody's happy.
So, Antonio, looking as we look to kind of close out this informative conversation, I want to kind of turn it to the employers. And what do employers need to do to prepare for this relevant change?
Yeah, so it's funny you ask that, because a lot of employees also ask me that and go, hey, what can we do to make sure that everybody actually has a UKVI account and everybody actually has, or everyone actually has an eVisa? Well, it sounds quite odd to say, but actually it is not the employee's responsibility to make sure that your employees have the account or register for eVisa. An employer's duty, I guess, is to make sure that your employees have permission to work in the UK, which one would assume and required also that they would have done so before employment have started with any individual, or have started with individuals. But nonetheless, a lot of employees, of course, care for, and I really fully appreciate that, of their employees and their well-being, and make sure that they can travel and all of that. So our advice is that employees should really develop a communication piece effectively and send it all to the visa holders or employees at large, because you may not know whether they have fully what status it is, to actually tell them about these type of things. I mean, we have for our clients anyway, we have sent through a communication sort of protocol in that sense, or template, which is also something that Home Office has developed in sort of how you would announce the need for the UKVI account and eVisas. Again, as I was saying, do another plugin. Our FAQ worked amazingly well because it answers a lot of those questions about what it is, and that sort of trigger and prompt the employee to sign up for those accounts. But ultimately, it would be extremely difficult, of course, for the employer to police it, because it's almost impossible to police it. But it will be good to give those nudges closer to the time. A lot of employers have already done the first round. They're planning a second round just as a reminder. So I would definitely encourage that as well, because that's the strategy that I have also been advising our employees to do.
Will, hopefully this doesn't seem like too much of a pivot, but next question I have, Antonio, is will employers have to do another round of right to work checks?
No, that's a great question, actually, because that's what employers are worried the most, right? What are we going to do? Well, I'm going to give you one of these answers that people probably don't like. It depends. It depends. Well, why it depends is because we have only fairly recently, when I say fairly recently, I'm talking about 2 years ago, that we've made it mandatory. When I say we, UK, have made it mandatory for right to work checks to be done online for visa holders or BRP card holders, effectively. And so when you do the online right to work check, it will show, of course, your true visa, because it's the e-record of what your visa looks like. So it could be 2026, 2025, 2027. Now, for those that have already done that and have marked it down, effectively, won't need to do a second round of right to work check until the expiry date, of course, or the repeat check, what we call, until the expiry date of visa. So the 31st of December wouldn't affect them at all. That said, when I say it depends, and that's that part, is, well, how did you do your right to work check pre-2022? Well, there was the online option that you would have been able to do as an employer, but a lot of people didn't do it. And of course, there were a lot of right to work checks that were done during COVID, of course, and pre-COVID and all of that, which is manual for visa holders, which means a lot of them would have relied on the BRP card, which then you would have marked the expiry date as the 31st of December 2024. Now, in those instances, it is definitely encouraged for everyone to then repeat that right to work check, because, of course, if the visa does indeed expire on the 31st of December and is never renewed and you didn't do it, then we might be in a lot of trouble. So, yes, that's where the demarcation need to be. It's how did you do your right to work check, and check your records, right? If it's only manual, or if the visa expiries are marked as 31st of December 2024, then businesses need to be prepared and start sorting out those right to work checks.
Last question, Antonio, that I have, very, very open-ended. Anything else that we should know or you would want to add?
Well, I think central message is, encourage your employees to sort out UKVI account, eVisa. Just makes life a bit simpler, and it's fun to do. Why not, right? Check out the latest government technology. It's always fun to do, so do it, right? But also, the other thing to add is prepare for further digitalization. There's further ahead that we're going to see. We know that there's going to be a new introduction of electronic travel authorization for the UK to be introduced for non-visa nationals, and also there's a second wave for European nationals as well. So prepare for that. A lot of things are going to be digital. I'm sure I'm going to be sitting with you both to talk a lot more about that in the future. But yeah, the UK is getting digitalized.
I feel like that's a topic on its own. The benefits, would you say, of digitization? I it sounds good, right?
Yeah, definitely a topic on its own. But I truly believe in paperless visa. I think it's too cumbersome to go through all of that, because 90% of the time is pretty, well, I say 90%, maybe I'll lower that to 80% of the time is pretty standard stuff, right? In terms of, visits and all that. But it'll be interesting to see how that's sort of rolled out. Of course, as I sort of hinted to the joke that we mentioned earlier about the ETIAS that keep getting delayed. Well, hopefully we don't have to delay.
Antonio, we'll have to have you back in 6 months and see what's changed and what has continued to digitize in the UK.
Oh yeah, well, happy to talk about that.
Well, Antonio, Cecilia, and I thank you so much for hopping on, discussing these important changes coming soon to the UK. And we'll talk soon. And for everyone listening, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode.